Welcome to Fierce, Fun, Feminine, and Other F Words. I'm Christine Elizabeth, and I help women unstuck themselves. Today's F word is freedom, because I'm releasing this on July 4th, Independence Day for the United States of America. But you know, we're not going to just talk about Independence Day. We're going to talk about freedom from your own mind. Yep, we're going there. Let's get started. Freedom is the quality or state of being free, such as the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. It's the liberation from slavery or restraint or from the power of another. Freedom is independence. It's independence. Do you remember the freedom when you first got your driver's license? I don't know if you were anything like me, but as soon as I could get behind the wheel, I was out of there. I was not afraid to drive. I couldn't wait to drive. And I couldn't believe the feeling like I can go anywhere I want. That was a small taste of freedom as a young person that I can honestly say, wow, that's what it felt like to not have to depend on someone to take me somewhere. So as a young person, I can relate to that. And I think everyone listening to this podcast can probably relate to that. 4th of July in the United States, that kind of freedom is something that we can't relate to when they signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776. That freedom is when we celebrated the passage of the Declaration of Independence. We celebrated freedom from the monarchy of Britain and King George III. We celebrated the birth of the United States as an independent nation. Those things, the things that people fought for in 1776 and before, we can't relate to that freedom because if you were born and raised in the United States, that's all you know. But when you read the history of what it could have been had they not passed the Declaration of Independence, July 4th is worth all of the fireworks. I am tried and true, made in America. I love the United States of America. I love that I'm born here. I feel privileged to live here. Is it utopia? No, I don't believe anywhere is utopia, but I feel very blessed that I was born here and I got to grow up with the freedoms that I have. How about you? I hope wherever you live that you're hearing this, you do have a taste of freedom. You know, freedom, we have so many things about freedom since COVID-19. I mean, this pandemic has started so many discussions about freedom. People have argued over freedoms being stripped because they couldn't see their family or they were forced to stay indoors, right? I mean, the United States didn't get lockdowns anywhere near what other countries had. So the United States people went berserk over that, right? We had arguments about being forced to wear a mask and how that was tearing away freedoms. We were forced to close businesses. Then it turned into a freedom of speech argument, right? Because if you didn't agree with something, then you were shut down and silenced. And freedom in the last, 16 to 17 months, freedom, at least in the United States, has been a huge topic. So it's really appropriate for me to talk about freedom, one of my favorite F words, by the way, to talk about it on the 4th of July. So if you're listening to this and it's not July 4th, I just want you to know this episode was released on July 4th. So that is why I keep bringing up the birth of the United States as a sovereign nation and freedom. You know, something else that I think is a really cool freedom, true love. When you really experience true love, you're free to be you. That kind of freedom is to me, it's everything, right? If you have the freedom to express who you are, you don't have to shrink and play small. Whoever maybe you're in a relationship with, maybe and hopefully you're in a relationship that allows you to just be you and you're loved for you. And if you're not in a relationship like with your significant other that way, hopefully you have friends who appreciate you for you like that. That, to me, is ultimate love, freedom. Freedom, love should feel like that, and I hope you have that. But you know, that's still not what I'm going to talk about today. I want to talk about your mind and the freedom of choosing what and how you think. Choosing what and how you think. I want you to think about that. The average person has just over 6,000 thoughts per day. Of those thoughts, how many of them are limiting beliefs, false beliefs, or negative thoughts about yourself. It's amazing how we can multitask in our head. Think about it. I don't know where you are right now. You could be listening to this podcast and driving thinking, oh, the light's going to turn yellow, but you're still listening to me. Or you're listening to this podcast and you're cleaning the house and also thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? You have a lot of thoughts, right? But those thoughts aren't always like, what's next, what's next, what's next. Often those thoughts are thoughts that are negative and they wrap around our neck and choke us. They hold us back. I know that sounds pretty graphic, but that's what negative thinking does. That's what limited beliefs do. If you have any negative thoughts, how would it sound about yourself? How would it sound if you took those thoughts and spoke them to your grandmother? Spoke them to your spouse or your child? Can you imagine? Would you even have friends if you spoke the words to them that you tell yourself inside your head? Can you imagine? So because we're all women here, and I know that 88 to 90% of women struggle with body image, I'm going to use body image as an example. When you go swimsuit shopping, I'm going to put money on the fact that you probably don't look in the mirror in the dressing room on the first swimsuit and go, dang, you're looking like fire, mama. You are hot. I wish that's what we would say. I hope that's what you say. But studies show that is not what we say. What do we say? Oh, good Lord. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be on the beach. Forget it. I'm not even going to buy my plane tickets. I'm not going. I'm not doing this. And then we try on another suit. I look pregnant. Then we try on another suit. Oh, my back fat. Then we try on another suit. My thighs. I have to cover the top of my thighs. Am I hitting a nerve here? Do you hear what I'm saying? So all of those negative thoughts, all of them, you're attacking yourself. Can you imagine if your teen daughter or your grandmother went to buy a swimsuit with you and you were like, oh, grandma, no, you can't wear that. You look pregnant. Oh, no, you look like a fat whale. Because that is a word that I used to call myself. And I know I'm not alone. That's not helpful. That's a prison. Body image struggles are a true prison. All of us struggle with it, well, except for 10% of you. And if you don't, I would love to meet you. Send me an email because I want to interview you on this podcast. I want to know who raised you, what got you to that point where your self-worth wasn't connected to your body image, because I would love to meet you. But 90% of us struggle. That's a perfect example of being in a prison, because most of us that struggle with body image want to cocoon, hide, camouflage what we perceive as flaws, all of that. But, there's other things that we do in our mind, and I'll give you some examples. Well, yeah, it won't work for me. It never, ever works out for me. So it might work out for you that way, but it's not going to work out for me that way. Or here's another one. Just my luck. That's how it always goes. Or another phrase. With my luck, I won't get to XYZ. Or I could never do that. I'm not good enough. Do you hear a pattern in those? Those are all limiting beliefs, false beliefs, negative self-talk. Can you imagine if you took those words and said those to your significant other or your child? You could never do that. You're not good enough. Or, no, it'll never work out like that for you. Just forget it. Don't even bother. I mean, really, why is it okay for us to speak that way to ourselves, but we would never say it to anyone else? I'm here to challenge you today to identify what those thoughts are so you can break free, live in freedom. It can be done. It can be. So I am passionate about this subject. I've been studying mindset and positive thinking and this type of work since my younger years when I first went to college. I have always been able to visualize because I was a competitive figure skater. So I could visualize what I wanted my body to do to achieve a certain outcome, like land my first axel or, hear the music and feel a waltz in my body. I could visualize that. What I couldn't control was what people said on the outside or what people did on the outside. Those things I had no control of. Those things are where I might have more struggle than someone else. If you're someone that is naturally negative and you don't know how to visualize, you don't know how to dwell on possibility, and you have some type of outside influence, you've got a double whammy against you. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there. That is being locked up in prison in your mind. We want freedom because that's what we're talking about today. So right now I'm reading a book. It's outstanding, you guys. And I think all of you, I was looking for it. I don't have it sitting here. I thought I did. It's called Choices, Embrace the Possibility. It is written by Dr. Edith Eger, E-G-E-R. This woman, if you haven't heard of her, she will change your life. And I don't say that about very many people. She is on podcasts. She's elderly, but she's a powerhouse because she survived Auschwitz. Just look her up. You're a podcaster. Just type her name in the search bar. She's been on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. She's been with Brene Brown. She's been with a whole bunch of different people. Dr. Edith Eger, E-G-E-R. The book I'm reading, I'm not finished with it yet, but I'm going to give you some summaries that she talks about choices and freedom. It's called Choices, Embrace the Possibility. So her story, let me give you a little story before I talk about what she teaches. She was 16 years old. She was a dancer, and she was preparing to hopefully get into the Olympics. She had fallen in love, that sweet, beautiful, sweet 16 love. She lived with her family and her sister Magda, and they were in Hungary, and they were swept out of their house and put on the train and the journey to Auschwitz. They had no idea where they were going. It was an awful journey. If you've done any research or study into that, they're packed like sardines where they can't move. You're alleviating their bowels and their bladder in front of strangers. It was just horrid. Anyway, they get to Auschwitz, and at this point, they thought that it was a work camp. They had no idea what was in front of them, and they were standing in line. And if you've heard these stories, they went through lines and they came face to face with a guard, and the guard said to Edith Eger about her mother, "Is this your mother or your sister?" And she said, "That's my mother." And Mom went one way and Edith went another. And she says, when you listen to her speak, I wish so badly I would have said, "That's my sister," because she later learned that sent her mother to the gas chamber. She had to live with that, and she still lives with that today. When it was time for Edith to get her number tattooed on her arm, the tattooist put the needle to her skin and just started to do it, and he stopped and he said, "I'm not going to waste my ink on you. Put her in the gas line." She was supposed to go to a gas chamber. I don't want to give away her story because I want you to read it. Of course she lived. Of course she survived. The coolest thing, though, is the way she survived. At the end of the war, there was a pile of dead bodies, and an American soldier was walking by and saw a hand moving in the pile, and it was hers. Her emaciated body was thrown to die. He saved her life. And now she's here sharing her story, using her voice. She became a psychologist. She has all kinds of degrees behind her, and she now does counseling and therapy for soldiers who come back from war or anyone who suffers from PTSD. And she goes on talk shows and she goes to college campuses, and she's sharing her story about how she is not who Auschwitz wanted her to be. She is not a prisoner of her past. She is not a victim. And so I want to give you some insight into how she breaks it down, because maybe you had something done to you that was horrible, atrocious, right? And she also makes a point to not minimize anything. She never wants to compare her atrocity to anyone else's. We never want to do that. And she makes a really good point in her book that we don't want to do that. I mean, who's going to be able to compare their atrocity to Auschwitz, right? It's the worst thing that happened to humans on the planet, probably. We don't want to minimize anything that's happened. I don't care if it was something terrible that happened to you physically, if you witnessed peril, or if you were called names and emotionally abused, that was an outside circumstance that happened to you. And a lot of times, like she did when she came out of Auschwitz, those flashbacks, those memories go on loop, and we replay them, and we become a prisoner of them. Am I hitting a nerve for you? I had some of that because my parents had a really rough marriage. My father was an alcoholic. It was physical abuse. There was emotional abuse, all of it. And I did have some of that. Some of it was so graphic. I have to shut some of those memories out. Okay. So I can relate to a small portion of what some people may be experiencing. That outside influence, you can choose to stay there or choose to move forward. And in Edith's book, she breaks it down this way. Victimization comes from the outside. Circumstances that happen to you, the name calling, the witnessing peril, maybe you saw someone pass away or get killed, horrible atrocities. I don't even want to list them because I don't want to have to add a trigger warning here. You know what they are. Those things, outside circumstances, they come from the outside. They make you a victim. Victimhood comes from the inside. It comes from not letting go of the victimization, and it eventually turns into you living as a victim. You are comfortable there. And what happens after a while is the blame game. Well, this happened to me. It's who I am. This happened to me, and it's terrible, and I'll never be able to do XYZ, and I'll never be good enough, or I have this scar, or I have this story around why I'm ugly or why I'm not good enough or whatever it is. And you blame what happened to you. And you stop taking responsibility for your life because the thing was so terrible. That's victimhood. And what Dr. Edith Eger says is you have a choice, my friend. You have a choice to believe that you deserve freedom from those thoughts, freedom from that thing. You don't have to dwell there. Maybe it really was terrible, but you're not meant to remain stuck. Why can't you thrive? Now, I'm taking this to an extreme right now, but now let's take it back down back to maybe body image. Why can't you start to love and appreciate your body? Now, you're not going to be in love with your body and go, hot damn, every day, right? That's not realistic. But why can't you start to appreciate your body, that it wakes you up in the morning? Because not everybody gets that chance. Why can't you start to see yourself in a relationship that's loving and kind and generous? Instead of saying, he's not out there, all men are trash. Why are we allowing ourselves to remain stuck in these horrible places because bad things happen to us? Maybe you had a relationship that ruined your trust in all men. Well, guess what, my friend? It's up to you to fix that, not a man. It's unfair for you to expect a man to fix you. You need to find a way, just like Edith Eger found a way, to overcome. And there are ways to overcome. And one of them is to stop those negative, false truths that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. You are deserving. You are not going to live as a prisoner in your past. You want freedom. If you want that great relationship, you're going to go out there and get it, but you're going to heal your wounds first. Or how about your job? Maybe it's your career. I'll never, ever make more money. I'm just going to be doing this the rest of my life. Well, yeah, you know what? You're right. If that's your attitude, that's exactly what you're going to get because you are stuck in prison. You're stuck in job prison. You don't believe. You don't dwell in possibility. Or maybe it's, just your loneliness. Now, I'm not going to minimize loneliness. I know it's a real thing, but there are some people that just wait for the phone to ring instead of picking it up themselves. They wait for a text instead of reaching out. Nobody cares about me. They don't want to be around me. You know what? I have a lot going on. I don't think about every single person in my life all the time, but when I get a text from somebody that took the time to reach out to me and go, hey, I'm going to be free tomorrow night. Can we get together? I'm so grateful. Gosh, he took the time to reach out to me. And even if I can't do it that night, I'll take the time. We'll talk, we'll connect, and we'll set a different night. So it's a choice to sit and wallow or take your first move, right? That's a choice. It's also a belief. Do you think you deserve it? Your self-worth is a big part of this. All of these beliefs. Dr. Edith Eger can help you get this book. I want to get it. I want you to get it and get it everyone's hands. So there's something else I want to tell you, another story. And this is probably my favorite story of all when it comes to limiting beliefs and how we can set our minds free. As I've said, I have learned from a young age how to use visualization to be a figure skater. And I kind of live in I get made fun of. You're always happy, crappy. Well, I kind of am, but I don't know where it comes from because my whole family parts of my family were like that and other parts weren't. I just somehow have a nature that goes in that direction. But I have been stuck in a downward spiral. I have. Where I was in a friendship with a narcissist and I could not for the life of me figure it out. Like, what am I doing wrong? I didn't know it was narcissism. I thought it was me. I was just like, wait, what? And anyway, it took me probably 3 years to finally come to terms with this person's a nut job. This isn't me. But I was in that downward spiral. It started to force me to question, like, am I a good person? And all the things that happen with narcissism. So I did have some of that. But for the most part, I believe I can do anything I put my mind to. And that's my next story. Have you ever heard of Roger Bannister? This is one of my favorite stories of all time. I keep saying that, but it's true. So in 1954, he was the first person in the world to run a mile in 4 minutes. The 4-minute mile was untouchable. The record for the mile, the fastest mile, had been held from sometime in the 1800s. For decades, people were trying to break that record. Decades. And, the people that would estimate like who would be able to do it next, they would write these little things and say, the next person that can ever break this record is going to have perfect conditions. It's going to have to be 68 degrees outside. The track is going to have to be very dry so it can respond. The shoes are going to have to be a certain way. The weather, obviously, I just said it. The crowds, it's just going to have to be a massive crowd because the cheering is going to push the runner on so that they can break the record. Well, in 1954, this British guy named Roger Bannister shows up on a wet, rainy day and a muddy track and a small crowd. And he broke the record and he ran the very first 4-minute mile. He said he did it because he believed he could. That's all it was. That's all it was. Now, did he train? Yes. Did he probably have to look for like the shoes that helped him run the best? I'm sure all of that happened, but the technology was different in the 50s, right? It was really rooted in his belief. But here's the cool part. 1 year later, somebody broke his record. Somebody ran faster than Roger Bannister. You know why? They believed they could. This is the holy grail of self-belief and possibility. This story is used all over the world. If you've never heard it, look it up online. It's so fascinating because once a human believes they're capable of something, they are unstoppable. What are you stuck in that you don't believe you can do? Where do you need freedom? Because you can do it. Now, I'm not going to tell you to try to fly if you jump off a building. We have laws of gravity and things like that. Let's wipe all of that stuff off the table. We always have those people. Well, you can't fly. Okay, we know in common sense that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about your life. I'm talking about what you want, your hopes and your dreams, your desires. Where are you stuck and what is limiting you? Where are you in prison? Because I want you to live in freedom. So as soon as you get done this podcast, I would encourage you to either dictate this in your phone or write it down somewhere. Write down what you want and why you don't have it yet. What do you want and why don't you have it yet? If you don't have it yet because you don't think you can, or there's some limiting belief like, well, I'm just not that person, or I just don't have this or that, or the conditions are wrong, or whatever, well, look at Roger Bannister. He went from the 1800s to 1954. He broke a record for all those years, decades, all because he believed he could. It's all it takes. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that if you hate your body, you can throw on a bikini and rock that thing and feel so great about yourself without a couple shots of tequila. It's going to take some work, my friend. Okay? But it's something that you can start to be aware of. Self-awareness is key. So what do you want and why don't you have it yet? How are you going to get freedom to believe you can have it? What are the beliefs about yourself that are holding you back? They're keeping you in the prison of your mind. What is it that's on loop that you keep playing over and over again? Is it a memory? Are you a victim? Are you living in victimhood? Are you choosing that? Because there are ways out. And I'm going to encourage you, get this book. It's called Choices, Embrace the Possibility. When you learn how to dwell in possibility, you will get discouraged, but you don't stay there. Can you imagine if Michael Jordan went around and just went, yeah, I didn't get that free throw. It's just my luck. Didn't happen. I'll never get that way. I'll never be good. Or Oprah, I'll use her. From ashes to amazing, right? What if she just was all down on herself and was like, nothing ever works out for me. Yeah, I'm no good. I'm not worth it. I can't do it because I don't have any money. Because she didn't come from that. I don't have the resources. I can't. I guarantee you, everyone that reaches success may have struggled with failure more than once, but they didn't turn into a negative Nancy or a negative Ned. They didn't say, well, that's just the way it goes for me. It's never going to work. That's not where they live. They live in possibility. Same for you. It's exactly the same for me. For all of us, we have to be free from the limiting beliefs in our mind. So you have your assignment. You're going to finish this podcast and you're going to write down, what do you want and where are you stuck? Where are you stuck in loop on things that have happened to you? Where are you still a victim? And what are the things that you say to yourself on a daily basis that you would never repeat to a child or your grandmother, but you're telling yourself? I want you to do that exercise. Write it down. Put it somewhere. Create self-awareness and then flip the story. Start telling yourself a new story, a story of possibility. You can do it. And if you need a little nudge, get these books. There's another book called The Gift, I think it is, by Dr. Edith Eger. It's a second book that she wrote after Choices. They're both fantastic. I haven't finished Choices, and I haven't even started the other one yet. I know you can't go wrong. She's so good. But also, if you need a little nudge, I am always here. I am available at fiercefunfeminine@yahoo.com. Reach out to me. Especially if you're one of those people that's the 10% that feels great no matter what bikini you have on. I really want to talk to you. I hope that this episode on freedom has opened your eyes and helped you become aware of where you're not free in your mind. I hope that you will find freedom in your mind, because living that way, there creates a lightness of being that's unmatched. You'll float a lot easier. Tragedies will come and go in our life. But if we can just float a little bit lighter, because our mind is a little lighter, it makes life taste a lot sweeter. That's all I have for you today. I could keep going on and on and on, but I would be giving the book away, and I don't want to give that away. I love this topic. I coach women in this topic. When they come to me for health or fitness programs, the first thing we work on is mindset, because so many of them say, well, I've tried everything. So they already are going into it thinking it's not going to work. If that's you and you're struggling, send me an email, fiercefunfeminine@yahoo.com. Maybe my program would help you. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe so that you get notified next time an episode is released. And feel free to share this for someone who may be stuck in the prison of their own mind. And until next time, have a fierce, fun, feminine, free, and fabulous day.